So I'll just put record.
Okay, got it.
I'm just going to go live to Facebook, and then we've got one of our attendees, Ravindra Chauhan, will do the introduction to you.
That's
Hare
nice.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. It is a pleasure for me to introduce this evening's speaker, His Holiness Mukunda Datta Das Prabhu, and he joined ISKCON in 1995 via the Tent campaign. He is a disciple of His Holiness Partha Sarthi Das Goswami Ji Maharaj, and the topic he chose to speak about is the reservoir of all pleasure. We are fortunate to have you with us this evening, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your time and acceptance of the invitation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Ravindra Chauhan. Ravindra Chauhan is a PhD student at UKZN, and he's also an attendee of our Namahatma.
Okay,
but recently he moved to Grahamstown now, but we are so fortunate we can still get his association.
Is formerly from India?
Yes, Prabhu, from India, Uttarakhand.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very nice.
Yeah. So Prabhu, welcome. And then I'd like to introduce you to Colleen Mataji that joined us.
Okay.
There's Hare Krishna, Colleen Mataji. You can say Hare Krishna so we know you're there. Hare Krishna to Bhaktan Koduta Paul from Romania. And we've got Mataji
Hare Krishna,
Ivira.
Mukunda Datta Das.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Please accept my humble obeisances or glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept my humble obeisances also. Right?
We are very fortunate to have your association today.
Thank you. I'm also very fortunate as well. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got Yuvira Mataji. Mataji, please say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
And then Colleen Mataji, if you can, we're also doing a sound check as well to see if the sound is okay. Mataji, Hare Krishna, Colleen Mataji.
Haribol, Prabhu, please
Thank you so much.
mute me because I'm busy in the kitchen, so I don't want to disturb you with my noise.
No problem. I just want to hear that you're there. Thank you for joining us. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Prabhu, we welcome you to give us a class. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
We're so fortunate.
Okay.
In fact, you came highly recommended by the temple president, His Grace Swarup Damodar Das. So we're very fortunate to have you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
A few people may join in very soon. And I know
fine.
there is load shedding in certain areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prabhu, you may start whenever you're ready, Prabhu.
We can start off.
Thank you. Yes.
We
have a little extra time today, so don't rush.
Okay. So we begin with Jai Radha Madhav.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Jai Radha Madhav. Kunda Bihari. Radha Madhava. Kunda Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha. Giridhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha. Giridhari. Jasoda Nandana Vandana Rangana. Jasoda Nandana Vandana Rangana. Jamuna Tera Vanachari. Jamuna Tera Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunda Bihari. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda. Sri Advaita Gadadhara Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Govinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radha Nata Radha, Radha Nata Radha. Jaya Radha, Radha Nata Radha, Radha Nata Radha. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivachakacharya Astota Tarasada Shri Shamadhi's Divine Grace by Charana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya. Astotatara Sata Shri Shrimadi Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Saridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Bhartmana Guru Vandi Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Vandi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhani Ki Jai. The Lordship Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hari Ki Jai. The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. The Lordship Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mahani Ki Jai. Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashi Nishingine Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakti Prabhashi Prahad Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Manahani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Kartik Mas Ki Jai. Shri Samabhait Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Lord Shri Guru and Shri Gaurangam. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. So before I begin, I will say the prayers to my spiritual master silently, and then we will continue. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvise Shunyavadi Paschatya Desitarine. So the topic for today is Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. And the idea is that everyone in the material world is looking for this idea or understanding of pleasure. We may find some people who have some problem mentally, want to have suffering, very few. But the general population, every living entity wanting to be happy, wants to enjoy, wants to experience pleasure. But the idea is that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So we'll begin with this and we'll end with this understanding. We'll speak in understanding later on. But the truth is that from the highest planet, our Brahma Bhuvana Loka, from the highest planet down to the lowest, all the places of misery where repeated birth and death take place. So this is the understanding that is there for every living entity. So there's no idea of being pleasurable or feeling happy when you understand that everything that I have, whatever I'm doing, is going to be basically doomed to pure failure, to come to an end. I want to be happy, but the idea is that my happiness will be thwarted. My happiness will be stopped. The ideas of birth, old age, disease, and death will always be there in every species of life, from the highest planet down to the lowest. These disturbances are always going to be there. So the ideal solution is how to become free, how to get out of it. And this is the essence of Krishna consciousness, how to become free, to escape the cycle of birth and death. And Srila Prabhupada many times gives the analogy of the fish out of water. And when the fish is taken out of water from his natural environment and is placed in some foreign environment and is given different facilities to enjoy, he can never ever be satisfied. You can give him a Porsche, a Ferrari, a big house, a big bank balance. But ultimately, no matter what he is given materially, will never satisfy him because he's out of his natural element. And so the idea is to return to the place where we come from. Now, Srila Prabhupada many times said that we have come from the spiritual world. Every living entity is eternally related to Krishna. Jivera Swarupai Krishna Ranatyadas. That's our eternal position, that we are all eternally servants of Krishna. But somehow or the other, it is explained that we come to this material world. And the reason why we come to the material world is because we want to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. And this is understood to be the disease or the problem. Because everyone is faced with this problem of birth, old age, disease, and death. And it is described, somebody had questioned me once, if the spiritual world is such a great place, if everything is so wonderful there, why would anybody leave? Why would anybody want to come to the material world? And we find also in the material world, freedom is very wonderful. We all are free. We can do whatever we like. But there are prison houses. There are prison houses where the criminals are kept in captivity and they are suffering. Why? Because they have chosen to break the law. In the same way, when we disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord, when we choose to enjoy separately from Krishna, then we are placed in suffering, unfortunately. And this material world is understood as a place of suffering. It's also referred to as Durgadam, the place of misery. And Durga Devi, she has a trident. And the trident has 3 spokes, 3 poking points. And we are continuously being poked or kicked by Maya, continuously, every step. There's the 3 modes of material nature which bind us, which cause us immense suffering. And then afterwards, there's the different miseries that are there. Adhyatmic, Adidevic, and Adibhautic. Miseries caused by our own bodies, miseries caused by natural disasters, and miseries caused by other living entities. Now, nobody wants to suffer, but suffering is forced upon us. And the example is given of a prisoner who is sleeping in a cell on the floor, and he has no bed. And from his prison cell, he can see the next prison. And in that prison, he can see that the prisoner is sleeping on a bed. And he thinks, I wish so much if I could be in that prison. And that prisoner is looking in the next cell and he's seeing that the other prisoner has got a bed and he's got a TV. And each prisoner is looking into another cell, wishing that he could go from one cell to the other. And in this way, this entire material world is an entanglement. It is a place which is likened to a desert. In the desert, there is no water. And in the desert, when there's no water, we start to hallucinate. We see the mirage and we try to chase after it, thinking, okay, it's so close. I can almost reach it. I can almost touch it. As soon as we go closer, it seems to go further and further away from us. And this is the idea. This is the idea of the material world. It is like we are suffering from thirst and somebody comes to give you 1 drop of water and say, right, this will quench you. This is the entire material world. That no matter what we try, we will always end up in some kind of frustration, some kind of disturbance. Even if we have the perfect family, we have the perfect wife or husband, we have the perfect children, we have the perfect job. Everything is working perfectly according to what we want. But after some time, death will come and basically kick us out. We will be forcibly kicked out from our comfort zone. And this is a great problem because sometimes in our spiritual life, in our Krishna consciousness, we become very much relaxed. We become very much easygoing. I'm following the 4 regulative principles. I'm doing whatever is required. I'm chanting my 16 rounds. But it is sometimes not enough in the sense that at the time of death, when we are tested the most, when whatever we are practicing in this time of our life as our sadhana will be tested at that very moment. His Grace Sureshwar Prabhu, who lives in Mayapur, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, had come to South Africa and he was giving a seminar and he was explaining how he was swimming across the Ganga. And as he was swimming halfway across the Ganga, he felt himself in difficulty. He couldn't make it. And he thought he was going to drown. And he was struggling to basically keep afloat and swim across to the other side of the river Ganga. And as he was swimming, he started to remember a song that he had learned in childhood. He had heard on television, advertising some chewing gum, Wrigley's chewing gum. And at the point of his death, about to die, here he is thinking about Wrigley's chewing gum. And he said that somehow or the other, he battled his way to the other side of the Ganga. And to die in the Ganga, yes, is very glorious. But at the same time, he had so much service to continue with. And if we have a Prabhupada disciple following the regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, maybe more, living in the Dham, following everything perfectly. But when that time of his life, when he was tested, when he was being tested, he was not able to remember Krishna. So this is the test that we all will be faced with. The idea or not whether we are able to remember Krishna in that crucial time. And then there's the other aspect that His Grace Paramatma Prabhu said, and that's how we came up with the topic of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was questioned, if I remember correctly what he had asked, that someone had questioned, why the demigods? Why did the demigods have to be there? If Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is self-sufficient, then why would the demigods be required to come in and facilitate whatever the Lord is doing? Surely he is perfectly equipped to basically arrange everything according to his desire. Simply by thinking, by his willing, it can all take place, which is true. It is absolutely correct. But the idea is that Krishna is not dependent on the demigods. We are. In the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 10th verse, the Lord explains that he sent forth the demigods and the living entities and sent this yajna, that you perform these yajnas to please the demigods. And when the demigods are pleased, then automatically they will give you rainfall and different requirements for continuing one's life. Please, can I have some water? Continuing in one's life. So the idea is this, is that Krishna is not dependent on anyone. He's not dependent on the demigods, neither is he dependent on any living entity. He's understood as Sarva Karanam, the cause of all causes. But the point of understanding is this, is that the demigods are there to facilitate our requirements, whatever we need, whatever we want. And then in chapter 3, text 13, text 12, excuse me, it says in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, for one who cannot understand what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. Thank you. So if one cannot understand who Krishna is, then definitely one should worship the demigods. Just like how we find in the government, there is a head, and he has all these different subordinates who are assisting him in his activities. And therefore he can go about his different duties, and the persons who are below him take care of all the different requirements. In the same way, the demigods are there to assist the Supreme Lord and basically facilitate the living entities. But Krishna is understood to be the Yagya Purush. He is the enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. We find in Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, text 29, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Surdam Sarva Bhutanam, Jinatvamam Shantim Archati. If one wants peace, one has to understand these 3 understandings, that Krishna is the benefactor, he's the well-wishing friend, and he is the knower of everyone. But basically, the demigods are just parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Now, the reason why I have joined Krishna consciousness is because of chapter 2, text 41, Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhir Eke Kuru Nandana. That simply by watering the root of the tree, automatically all the leaves and branches become satisfied. So when I had heard my spiritual master speaking about this topic, and he explained that there are 33 crores of demigods, 330 million. And he was explaining the different demigods' names, Chandra, Indra, Varuna, and the list went on. And the idea was that we are only worshipping a few, a certain few that there are. But the root cause of all existence is Lord Krishna. And simply by connecting with him, by worshipping him directly, one basically in one stroke, as Srila Prabhupada says, everyone becomes satisfied. Instead of watering the leaves of a tree, which has little or no benefit, a whole big tree, trying to satisfy each leaf by trying to water it is not going to achieve anything. But when we water the root, Krishna, when we satisfy Krishna, automatically all the devas, all the ancestors, every single living entity is automatically satisfied, because Krishna is described as the root cause of all existence. And simply by pleasing him, automatically everyone else becomes satisfied. Now, the idea of satisfying the Supreme Lord is not there in everyone's understanding. Especially in the Hindu culture, we find that there are different persons who have different desires. If you want a beautiful husband or a beautiful wife, you worship Uma. And if you want certain types of activities, you worship different demigods, and you get some result in return. But that is not the essence of the goal. The goal of life is to understand and to know the Supreme Lord and to love him. Prema Pumarto Mahan. The idea or goal of life is to attain love of Godhead. Now, there are different rasas, there are different exchanges. There's Santa, there's Dasya, there's Sakya, there's Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Whatever relationships we find in this material world are reflections of the Supreme Lord in his exchanges with all his associates. And this is something which is extraordinary. We don't find this in other religions. In some places we find, "O Lord, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us our daily bread." That God becomes the facilitator, the order supplier. That I will worship God only when I want something, which is good. If we know who the Supreme Person is, then yes, Krishna says 4 types of people, they approach me. And one of those persons are those who are seeking wealth, those who are in difficulty. They come to the Supreme Lord. He says, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, piety, persons who are pious approach the Supreme Lord. But those who want temporary benefits, they approach the Devas. And they are given something and it is taken away. So the idea is that surrender to Supreme Lord is not such an easy thing. One time, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj was speaking to an elderly gentleman, and they were having a so-called debate on who is the Supreme Person. And Giriraj Maharaj is explaining, according to Shastra, according to Bhagavad Gita, according to the different scriptures, Lord Krishna is understood as Swayam Bhagavan. He is the original personality of Godhead. And this gentleman, the elderly gentleman, he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And an exchange started to take place. And His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, at that time, he was not a sannyasi. He was a brahmachari. And he was pushing this point across. No, scripture says, Krishna, and he was quoting verses, he was giving examples. But this gentleman was adamant. And eventually he became very upset. He didn't appreciate. And Srila Prabhupada came and this gentleman complained. He said, actually, this disciple of yours is saying such and such thing, but my understanding is this. You give your conclusion. And if you say what it is, then I will accept. So Srila Prabhupada said, there are 2 words. There is puja and there is bhakti. And there is Krishna and there is Lord Shiva. Now you say which word is relevant to which personality. And the gentleman stopped for a moment and he thought about it and he understood. He said, yes, puja is for Lord Shiva and bhakti is for Krishna. And he accepted yes. So the idea is that different personalities we have seen in history. There was this Vritasura. He was wanting to touch the head of anyone. His head must break into so many pieces. And he approached Lord Shiva and asked for this benediction. And in turn, what did he do? He tried to take the wife of Lord Shiva. He wanted to enjoy her. And Lord Vishnu had to save him. We have the example of Hiranyakashipu, worships Lord Brahma. And what does he want to do? He wants to become immortal. And in that way, he was terrorizing everyone. We have Ravana, who also was worshipping Lord Shiva. But in the end result, what he was given, his idea was to cause disturbance to others. But the devotees of Krishna's mentality is completely different. The idea of surrender, the idea of bhakti, the idea of devotion to the Supreme Lord is something different compared to other religions of the world. We find there's so many different types of worship and prayer and practice. But when we come to this understanding of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, the understanding is different. Here we can have different relationships with God. We can see God face to face. We can eat with him, we can play with him, and we can dance with him. Srila Prabhupada states in one of the purports, the goal of life is to see the Supreme Lord face to face, to dance with him, to eat with him, to play with him. Now, for some persons, this is impossible to understand. How can you see God? Some people don't even accept that you can even see God. One person spoke to me once, and I was telling him, we can see God face to face. And he said, no, if you see God, you will die. God will burn you to ashes. And I was thinking, no, our Krishna is not like that. Our Krishna is very loving and merciful. And the aim is to go back. It is described, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Shadya Kabunayam, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta Karayudayam. That love of God is present within every one of us. It is not something to be gained from an outside source. Love of God is prevalent within every living being. It's simply a matter that it is covered. And when one is coming in contact with someone who has that love for Krishna, who comes from the spiritual master, the saintly person, just by his association, one awakens that love. That love is automatically, it is already there, but one has to awaken it. And this is happened by association, associating with pure devotees, coming in contact. And slowly one is allowed entrance into that which is the greatest, the highest understanding, to be able to love the Supreme Lord. Now this Nara Leela, this idea of the Supreme Lord, the pastime, Nara means human, human-like, and Leela means pastime. So this Nara Leela of the Supreme Lord is very difficult to comprehend. It's very difficult to understand that how can God be a person? How can God have a mother and father? How can God be engaging in different activities like this? God is meant to be supplying my needs. What is the idea that God can be a child? How can it be that God takes on the form of a child? I mean, it's inconceivable. The idea is, the word to describe is called achintya. It's inconceivable. How can somebody understand? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that to try and understand the philosophy of this Krishna conscious culture is like trying to take a paper plate and place a foot and elephant into that paper plate. It's impossible. We cannot even begin to conceive. Our head is only so big. Our brain is only so big, and we can only understand to certain degrees. And we have Lord Brahma, who has 4 heads, and he himself becomes bewildered by Lord Krishna. Now, this Supreme Lord, he is captured by love. Last week, Sunday, we had gone to the temple in Chatsworth, Sri Radhanath, and very nicely it was explained how Supreme Lord Krishna is caught by love. He's bound by love. And not everybody can understand this. It's inconceivable how God himself forgets that he is God. It's like we may forget, and somebody says, what God is forgetting, and what kind of a God is that? That God, he forgot that he was God. It's like, it sounds strange that God is forgetting. But this is the power of Yogamaya, and this is the power of Vrindavan. There is the word Mukunda and Sarvagya. Sarvagya means to know everything, past, present, and future. The example given is of the super soul. He's always present with you, and he's watching all your activities, and he understands even before you can even do something, even before you can think it. He already knows. And we find in Bhagavad Gita, he's explained to Arjun. Arjun says, but how could you speak to the sun god? Like this, and that was so many million. Krishna said, many, many birds we both have had. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So the idea is there that Krishna knows. He knows everything. He is the source of all creation. He's the cause of all causes. But he himself becomes Mugdha. When he is in Vrindavan, he is forgetting this idea that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is imagining that he is a child. Now we have an example of someone who's performing an act on a stage, and they may have the different roles in life off stage, but when now they are on stage, the person now takes on the role of a king, or I am such and such, or I am a dancer, or whatever it may be. And after the role is finished, he goes back to his everyday life. But in Vrindavan, in this pastime of Krishna as a baby, he actually thinks that I am a little child. I am not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He forgets. Somehow or the other, he becomes captured by his illusory energy, the Yogamaya potency. Now we are caught by Mahamaya. We are always caught. We don't have any understanding of who we were. We cannot even remember what we were doing yesterday at this particular time. But Krishna knows past, present, and future. But somehow or the other, in this Vrindavan pastime, Krishna becomes Mukunda. He forgets. He forgets that he is the Supreme Lord. And he plays like an ordinary child. And we find that sometimes he's eating dirt, he's eating sand. And the cowherd boys are complaining to Mother Yasoda, just see, your son is eating dirt, he's eating sand. And Krishna is saying, no, I didn't do such a thing. And Mother Yasoda says, okay, open your mouth. And then he opens his mouth and she sees the entire universe and she becomes bewildered. And automatically Krishna withdraws this. He withdraws this potency of showing this entire universe. Why? Because it spoils the mood. It spoils the mood of madhurya, of sweetness. Because the Supreme Lord wants to enjoy like this with his devotees. He wants to engage in activities as we are engaging with each other in the material world. There is no Aishvarya. There is no awe and reverence. The Supreme Lord Krishna, he is worshipped. If somebody knows that he is the Supreme Lord, automatically it changes the whole mood. People start to offer obeisances. Nobody wants to. The cowherd boys, they jump on Krishna's back. Sometimes they're playing leapfrog and they fight with him. They have arguments. They tease each other. You cannot do this with Lord Vishnu. You cannot go and slap Lord Vishnu on the back and say, let's play football, or let's play cricket. Let's go to the ground. It doesn't work that way. With Lord Vishnu, it is awe and reverence. But the mood in Vrindavan is one of madhurya, is one of sweetness. And this is the whole essence of this pastime that takes place in Braj. In Braj, the mood is completely different. No one cares that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is in love with him. He is the lovable object for everyone. Everyone is so much captured by his beauty. And even though Garga Muni had come in the naming ceremony for Krishna, and he was explaining that this boy, in his past birth, he was such and such, he was the Supreme Lord, he engaged in different activities, he's done such and thing, and he will do this. But nobody said, everybody's thinking, yeah, that may be so, but he's our little Lala, he's our little boy, our Nandanandana. And everybody is captivated by this. Nobody's interested in worshiping him as the Supreme Person. Everybody is more interested in exchanging with him. And everybody has an opportunity to engage in activities with the Supreme Lord. Now, when we are offering our lamp, there are two aspects when we offer the lamp. There is nimitta, and there is the other understanding of upadamba. Now, upadamba is the primary understanding, and nimitta is the secondary understanding. The offering of the lamp is, okay, yes, you turn 4 times to the feet, 2 times to the waist, and then also you offer to the head, and you continuously do like this. That's the secondary understanding. But more importantly is the upadamba, the understanding of offering one's heart, offering one's love, the essence. It's not so much about the rules and regulations. The idea is more of offering devotion, to offer pleasure to the Supreme Lord. Now, everybody in the material world wants pleasure, but nobody is thinking of giving pleasure to someone else. And the source of all pleasure is the Supreme Lord. If we want to enjoy, if we satisfy Krishna, automatically we become pleased. But when we have this mentality to try to satisfy our own senses, then we become entangled. We become caught in this distraction or disturbance of this material world. It becomes a complete opposite. So there's a very nice, interesting story of how this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. It is described in the Bhagavad Gita. There is an imperishable banyan tree, its roots growing upwards and its branches down. And someone who understands this is the knower of the Vedas. And also one has to cut that root, cut from where it starts. So it's very important to understand that the entire material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. We said this early on when we began. We will continue on that topic now. So we will say a little story to illustrate this point. Once there was a prince, and the prince, he offered a diamond necklace to the princess. And he said that this diamond necklace is a gift, is a token of my love for you. Whenever you see this diamond necklace, you will know that it is my love that I have for you. So the princess was very much appreciative, and she took the diamond necklace and she wore it every day. And whenever she wore it, she would think, yes, the prince loves me so much. This is the token of his love. But she would have to take it off when she would take a bath. And she left it on the windowsill. And while she was taking a bath, a crow came by. A crow likes different shiny elements. It likes and carries it away. So the crow had seen this diamond necklace and was attracted by the shine, the glitter of this necklace. Immediately he picked it up and flew off with the necklace. And the distraught princess spoke to the prince and said, please get the necklace back. I want my necklace returned. And the prince just laughed it off and he said, actually, I can buy you 10 more of them, or even more expensive. It doesn't matter. It's just a small thing. Forget about it. But the princess was adamant. She said, no, you said that was a token of your love. And therefore, I want that necklace. I don't want any other necklace. I want that specific necklace because you said it's imbued with your love. Whenever I see it, I feel happy because I know this is your love for me. So the prince, he passed a message on to all the citizens via his soldiers, saying that anyone who brings this necklace back, who gives it to me in return, will be given a great reward, will be rewarded very richly. And the prince said like this, and he was waiting for some response. As days went by, the princess became more and more unhappy because she could not get this necklace returned. But there was a boy who was a shepherd. And while he was sitting on the bank of a river, he saw the necklace in the water. And immediately he understood, if I get this necklace and I give it to the prince, I will be rewarded as he had promised. So he dove into the water, trying to fetch the necklace. But each time he tried to touch it, tried to pick it up, it kept going further and further away from him. And also, there was quicksand below this water. So while he was trying to get the necklace, he was being sucked into the sand. And somehow or the other, he was able to pull himself out and come ashore. But the idea of the necklace kept disturbing him, and the reward was there. And he kept thinking of how to go back into the water. He tried different ideas trying to get into the water, but it wasn't working. And because of the excitement, he kept jumping into the water, trying to get the necklace to come out. Trying to get the necklace, and what would happen? He'd get drawn into the water by the quicksand. Somehow he would come out, and the whole day was passed in this way. Jumping in, pulled in by the quicksand, coming out, going back in, trying to fetch the necklace. And as he was doing this, a sadhu was walking by. And the sadhu noticed that this boy is drenched in water. And he was questioning, why are you doing this? Why are you in such a state wet? Why are you not dry? What are you trying to do? And the boy was very scared initially. He thought if he tells the sadhu, then maybe the sadhu might want to take the necklace away. But the sadhu explained to him, see, I am a saintly person. I have nothing to do with this material world. But if you tell me your difficulty, I will give you a solution. So the boy trusted him and he said, see, the necklace is in the water. I'm trying to reach the necklace. There is quicksand in the water, and each time I go in, it pulls me down. And whenever I try to grab the necklace, it seems to go away from me. I cannot get it into my hand. Please, can you provide me with a solution? And when the sadhu heard this and he listened to what the boy said, he started to laugh. He said, yes, you were searching for the right thing, but you were searching in the wrong place. Look up above. The necklace is hanging in a branch from the tree. And what you were seeing in the water is simply a reflection. And this is the idea of the material world. Whatever pleasure that we are seeking after in this world is simply a reflection of the reality. Happiness exists, pleasure exists, it is there, but it's not in the material world. And this is what Gita teaches. The Bhagavad Gita is teaching that you will not be happy here. The idea is not meant to be hanging around in Westville or Johannesburg or whichever country in this world, all material places. Because no matter how replete of happiness it may be, it is all temporary. It comes and it goes. It has a beginning and an end. We are searching after that which is eternal, which does not come to an end. And as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, we are meant to be in the spiritual world, relating with him. We have nothing to do with this material world. Somehow or the other, we have become entangled. It is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 4. Nunam pramata kurute. That the living entity is pramata, he's mad. But nunam, he's sufficiently mad. And he's so caught up by sense gratification to satisfy the senses that he's prepared to do anything and everything simply to gratify himself. And this is the disease of the material world. The material world is such a place where it creates so much of illusion, the expectation of happiness, of pleasure. If I do this, if I get that, if I live here, or if I do so many things, each one has their own idea of what will give them happiness. But when you reach that point, you think, no, this is not enough. I want something else. I want something else, a faster car, a quicker this, a better fix on that. And the whole world is going about this mentality, simply living without thinking, instead of simple living and higher thinking. Because instead of going forward, we're going backwards. Because we see that as we advance technologically, yes, we can use it in Krishna's service. That is wonderful. That is very nice, which is very true. But the idea is this, that we don't become entangled. We don't become entangled with all the different glare and glitter of the material world. As the devotees were walking on Venice Beach one morning with Srila Prabhupada, one devotee commented to Srila Prabhupada, the ocean looks very beautiful, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada turned and looked at the ocean and said, yes, Maya is also like that, very attractive. But if you get caught in her waves, she will drown you. So the material world is like this. We become so much enamored, so much captured by so many things happening around us. And we start to forget that even if we become Krishna conscious, it's how much Krishna conscious are we throughout the day? Is it only when we are chanting our 16 rounds? Or is our whole life molded in that way to give pleasure to Krishna? Or are we trying to get pleasure out of Krishna? It's a very big understanding. It's a very deep understanding. Are we trying to give pleasure to Krishna? Or are we trying to get pleasure out of Krishna, out of this understanding? The idea is that to give pleasure to Krishna. And when we satisfy him, automatically we become satisfied. Otherwise, it comes back to the point of trying to pour petrol on a fire, trying to put it off. It simply goes higher and higher and higher and doesn't end. And this is the disturbance. Material world, everyone is trying to be happy. Everyone's trying to be ahead, to go ahead, to get the latest this or that. We study so hard, we get a job, and we keep going from one thing to the next. But the idea should be that Krishna be in the center. And when Krishna is in the center, everything else, the wife, the children, the job, the home, the car, everything becomes centered around that. And that way, we don't do Abhishek for our car on a Sunday morning. We do Abhishek for the deity in the house. Because some persons are very much captivated by the material glare of life. the car with shiny magnums, and get out everything on a Sunday morning and perform abhishek on the car and do all the different things. Because the material world is like this. We all want enjoyment. Everybody wants satisfaction. But no matter how much we try, we can try as much as we like. It is not going to give us what we want. As the famous singer had said, Mick Jagger, I can't get no satisfaction. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and we can keep trying for as long as we like. Till the point we come to the end of our life, we can try, and we will never be satisfied. Because we're not meant to be here in this material world. In that purport of the 5th canto, the 5th chapter, text 4, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says that we are not meant to be in this material world. This is not our home. We don't belong here. And in due course of time, this physical body that we have will come to an end. It is guaranteed. Somehow or the other, whichever way it has to happen, the body will break down. The body will die. And the idea is that where will we go to from there? And this is very important. And this is what's taught in Bhagavad Gita, the essence. Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. In the Sankhya philosophy, we study the 24 elements of material nature. And then we understand, okay, I'm not that, I'm not this, neti, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this. And eventually you come to the conclusion, I'm not material, I'm spiritual by nature. Fine. Then where have I come from? I've come from the Supreme Person. So one starts to search out, and that's Sambandha. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, God. And then there's a process called Abhidaya. How do I connect to that Supreme Lord? It is called devotional service. And the ideal understanding, the end of the understanding, Prayojana, is the goal. Love of Godhead. Every bona fide religion teaches this, to be able to know God and love Him with all your heart and soul. Now, if you don't know who someone is, if I say love Mr. John, and you have no idea who Mr. John is, how can there be an exchange? How can there be a relationship? How can there be love? One has to know who the person is to be able to have a relationship. And this is very important. Srila Prabhupada, out of his kindness, has revealed that which is unknown to everyone else, who the Supreme Lord is. We have his address, we have his phone number, we know what he likes, we know what he does. We have everything to know about the Supreme Person. And the most importantly is how to be able to connect with him. And that is given in the Sankirtan Yajna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And through this process, 7 Mukha hi Jivado, by beginning with the tongue, devotional service begins by chanting Krishna's name. And as we continue to chant Krishna's name, we associate with devotees, we chant attentively, we avoid the 10 offenses, and we start to advance. We start to advance in spiritual life. And the perfect example is the Americans. When Srila Prabhupada had gone to America initially, nobody had heard of Krishna. No one knew who Krishna was. But Srila Prabhupada, out of his potency, his purity, was able to awaken that dormant love. As we said earlier on, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Shadji Kabu Nayam, Shavanadi Shuddha Chitta Karaya Udaya. That Krishna consciousness, love of God, is already present within us. It's just a matter of it having to be awoken. And this is what Srila Prabhupada did. He went there, chanted Hare Krishna, and he awoke the dormant love of Godhead in these different persons. And not only that, they were so much convinced that this Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. And simply by pleasing him, automatically we will become pleased. And they were feeling it. They were experiencing love of God. Srila Prabhupada, every step of his life, was experiencing love of God. And he was sharing this with his followers. And they were experiencing it and giving it to others. And in that way, we are also receiving and trying to give it to others as well. So it's something very special. It's very unique. No one else has this understanding of God, of how he is able to relate with his devotees. Krishna becomes Partha Sarati. He is the Supreme Lord, and yet he becomes the servant of his devotee. He carries Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head. Now, shoes is meant to be a dirty thing. Nobody likes to take. If you want to insult somebody, you beat them with your shoe. One year in India, it was holy time. And there's one brahmachari, they caught him, and it was holy, and they put all these different dyes on his body, and they took a garland of shoes and they put it around him, which is not nice. It's very insulting to put a pair of shoes on someone. But here, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is taking Nanda Baba's shoes and he's placing on his head, and he's finding pleasure out of it, that I am giving pleasure to my devotees. The devotees are trying to please me, and I am trying to please them. And there is a constant reciprocation between the Lord and his devotees. It is not that the Lord simply provide everything for us and that we simply enjoy. Yes, you keep giving and we keep enjoying. No. The idea of Krishna consciousness is to be able to please Krishna. As His Holiness Radhanath Swami was explaining early on in Calcutta, when the bombs were being dropped in Calcutta, and Srila Prabhupada was busy cooking, making an offering for Krishna, they were telling him, Abai Babu, come on, the bombs are coming. The bombs are coming. Let's go to the safety, the bunker. Let's go underground. And Prabhupada is thinking, but I'm offering this to Krishna. I cannot leave this. I cannot leave the Supreme Lord. It's pleasure. If I have to die doing this, that is all right. But I cannot give up my service to him, because this is for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, even at the cost of death. And Srila Prabhupada was saying, I was seeing that these atoms, these bombs that were coming are Krishna in another form. And if Krishna wants to take me away like that, then he can do also. But it's a different idea, because he's completely surrendered. We can't do the same. But the idea should be is that the idea wanting to please Krishna. And in that way, by pleasing him, automatically you become happy. When you try to satisfy your own senses, there will be frustration, no matter what we try in this world. And there are many people who have many facilities to do this. We find when Srila Prabhupada had gone to America, the hippies, they tried everything. You can name it, and they had done it. And Srila Prabhupada was saying that this country, America, they have all facilities in every respect for enjoying material enjoyment, satisfaction, to satisfy the senses. It is the perfect place. In Las Vegas and I don't know what other places, but they're places for sense gratification at every step, at every turn. But they had become frustrated. They didn't want to enjoy it anymore, because they could understand, I'm doing this, I'm enjoying this thing, but it's not giving me what I want. And then we have India. They are saying, oh, we want to be like the Americans. Oh, yes, speak like an American. This guy, that guy, to impersonate. But the persons who are from America are following the Indian culture. So it's a matter of understanding an opposite. Here we see the Indians are wanting to become like how the Americans are, and the Americans are taking up that which these people from the Indian country are trying to chase after: money, wealth, and even thinking it will give me happiness if I get this, if I get that. And here are these persons who have so much of it. They have every facility to give them happiness, but they are not going to the reservoir of all pleasure. And therefore, their happiness is limited. And they're coming to Krishna on the other side, and their happiness is becoming magnified. It doesn't finish. It's not like something material where you take out a little bit and it starts to get less. No, it's described as Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, an ever-increasing ocean of bliss. It just gets greater and greater, better and better. So on one side, we have material life, which is full of misery, full of suffering, full of disturbances. And on the other side, there's the spiritual life, Krishna to enjoy and be eternally relating with him. So it's a matter of choice where we want to actually be, whether we want to remain in suffering or whether we want to go back to the spiritual world. Now, this year in January, my mother-in-law, a devotee, my god sister Ambika Devi Dasi, had passed away from COVID. And a week later, my sister-in-law Brajavasini also ended up in hospital due to COVID. And for 1 month, she was in hospital in ICU. And unfortunately, she also succumbed to the disease. And initially, the idea was, yes, I think I have it together. I understand to some degree I'm not this body. Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead. The goal of life is to be able to, attain love of God. But the attachment to these different family members was still there. And somehow or the other, when they were taken away, it was a shock so quickly. It happened in such a quick effect that couldn't contemplate, try and understand what happened, what exactly took place. And then I was speaking to a saintly person, one of our devotees, a very senior devotee at the temple. And I was saying in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, it is described, no one can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord, and he acts in mysterious ways. And then the devotee also commented, and his plan is perfect. However Krishna arranges, whatever he arranges is perfect in every respect. We may not understand it or know why it happens, but whatever Krishna does is perfect. It is described that not even a blade of grass can move without Krishna's sanctioning. Unless Krishna sanctions something, it will not take place. So the idea that we have a spiritual master, and the spiritual master was explaining. He was explaining that the idea is there's this Vastu city. We all take birth in Lord's pastimes. Srila Prabhupada is the loudest entrance into those pastimes. When you become initiated, you're connected up to the parampara. And there were so many different encouragements that were given. And yes, we all are destined for the spiritual world. All we've got to do is simply remain on the ship or this boat of ISKCON. And even though we are caught in this material world and we are affected by Maya, and Maya is rocking the boat from time to time, as long as we remain on this boat of ISKCON and continue, and as His Holiness Bhakti Chormaj said, to be able to go back to God, we have to die in ISKCON. So the idea is, if we die in ISKCON, we continue the practice, we practice till the end of our life, eventually we will go back to God because we are on the path. We are on that path, and even if somehow or the other we may slip from the practice, still we continue in our next life. But if we attain some material position, no matter how high it is, even if it is a point of Brahma, still there's every risk that we can lose that and slip down to lower species of life. But for anyone who practices Krishna consciousness, who takes to it, then there's no loss for that person. There is only simply gain. There is gain in every respect. Srila Prabhupada many times said, it's not about how you start. It's not how you start the race, it's how you finish. Srila Prabhupada didn't say that. Our Guru Maharaj says it. It's not how you start the race, it's how you finish. Srila Prabhupada said that the idea is that don't be surprised with the people who leave this movement. Be surprised with the people who stay. And early on, we were listening to His Holiness Radhanand Swami, how he was explaining about how somebody questioned, why do devotees get sick? Why do the difficulties devotees have to be facing these different challenges? And Maharaj said, you can do 3 things. He said, 1, you can be thankful when you are placed in difficulty. Yes, Krishna, it could have been so much worse, but you were so kind, and you have now minimized it. Tatte anukambam susamikshama bunjita. That's in the 10th canto. That you're so kind that you have minimized something so bad and made it into something so bad into something so small. Thank you so much. Or there's the second understanding, we can blame Krishna. Why did you allow this to take place? Don't you know I'm surrendered so much to you and you're doing this to me? Why? And the third understanding is that we completely give up faith. If Krishna was there, he wouldn't have let this take place. Because it has happened, he cannot be the Supreme Lord. Therefore, I don't want to worship him anymore. So it's a matter of where we want to be. And Maharaj also made another point, He said that if we had known when we had joined this movement that we'd be put into these different challenges, maybe we wouldn't have joined at all. Because the idea of bhakti or devotion is that sometimes we are forced to surrender. Srila Prabhupada, when he had gone to America, while he was in India, it seemed like he was struggling, but it is a leela. He was not being purified, but he was setting an example that he would endeavor, no matter what difficulty came his way, he was determined that he would continue in his practice of Krishna consciousness to spread this to everyone else. And therefore, there's something very interesting that I think of sometimes, that the devotee has to have depth in his practice of Krishna consciousness. D is for determination, E is for enthusiasm, P is for patience, T is for tolerance, and H is for humility. It's very important that we practice. And our Guru Maharaj tells us we should be wild in our spiritual life. We should always consider ourselves worthless, insignificant, lower than the straw in the street, and destitute. And finally, there's this understanding of acha, A-C-H-A. Anything can happen anytime. Srila Prabhupada said this. Anything can happen anytime. Death can take place. But if death has to take place, it should take place in a Krishna conscious way. Whatever has to happen to us will happen, but we should always be fixed and focused in our practice in serving the Supreme Lord. So no matter what can come our way, no matter how difficult challenges may come, Srila Prabhupada said, if one is truly fixed in Krishna consciousness, no matter how difficult disturbances may come his way, still he will not give up his practice of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, because that is the ultimate. And we will be tested, come what may. As we try to advance, Maya will try to attract us. Maya will try to take us away from Krishna. But we have to be determined, and we have to learn to associate with devotees. And when we are strong by associating with devotees, then it's very difficult to break. Like if you take one stick, it's very easy to tweak, just break it. But if you take a bundle and you put it together, it is very, very difficult to break. So in this way, when devotees associate with each other, they serve the temple, they serve each other. There are 6 loving exchanges, as we had His Grace Ram Vijay Prabhu had done on Sunday. We associate favorably with devotees and we chant in a nice way, attentively. We are able to advance. And no matter how much disturbance come our way, we will be able to overcome. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept humble obeisances of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
Sure, I was amazed that you were talking so fluently, and so confidently. And your knowledge is really amazing, Thank you so much.
Well, mercy of Guru Maharaj. Is there any questions we can try to speak? Or
Yes, there is some. Prabhu, we also welcome His Grace Jai Sachinanda Prabhu, who has joined us as well.
then he can answer.
Prabhu, if you can please share some of your realizations, and also welcome to Krsna Mataji that joined us. Hare Krishna Mataji, welcome.
Jai Sachinanda Prabhu is there?
Yes, is there, Prabhu? If you can please unmute yourself, Prabhu. Jai Sachinanda Prabhu.
Let Prabhu speak.
There's a question from someone. If you can please unmute yourself from Krsna Mataji. I think Jay Prabhu might be busy. So we've got just about 15 minutes left because we'll have load shedding on this side. So Prabhu, if you don't mind, after the question, just a few minutes, Kirtan, we'll appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, Krsna Mataji, if you can please unmute.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for wonderful class. I have no question because everything was so beautiful and clear. And I must say that I'm fortunate. I feel only nectar in devotional service, and for me, I'm doing everything just for Krishna and for His pleasure. And I feel very fortunate. Thank you very much for your
Thank
class.
you so much. Thank you. It's very
Hari Bol.
wonderful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare
That was
Krishna.
fast and
Krishna.
quadruple Paul it was. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
It's very
Ravindra
nice.
Prabhu, is there any comments from your side, Ravindra Prabhu? Yuvira Mataji, if you have anything, Prabhu, please continue.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for the wonderful class this evening. I don't have any questions. So yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay, Prabhu, I don't see any more questions. Yuvira Mataji, is any comments or questions from your side? Or
Hare
Colleen
Krishna
Mataji?
Prabhu.
Yes.
Thank you for the lovely service. I really enjoyed the topic today,
Krishna.
and it was very enlightening. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Colleen
Krishna.
Mataji, is anything from your side? Jay Prabhu, is anything from your side? Prabhu, I just got a quick question from my side. You're talking about the material world, being suffering and Durga Dham. Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you can hear me?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, you're talking about Durga Dham, you're saying the
Yes,
material world is
yes.
full of suffering.
Suffering.
So, so obviously we are stuck in this material world, but what about the holy places and temples and, is that considered the material world or is it also spiritual world?
No, that is the spiritual world.
Okay.
Vrindavan is non-different. The Bhumi Vrindavan is non-different from Vrindavan in the spiritual world, one. And two, Srila Prabhupada, see, Advaitacharya was talking to Lord Chaitanya. He said to Lord Chaitanya, wherever you are, my Lord, that is Vrindavan. So in all our temples, we have pictures of Lord Chaitanya, we have Radha and Krishna. Even your house, in the back there, I see the picture. That is a holy place. It's a tirtha. Wherever the Lord is glorified, the place becomes a tirtha, a holy place. And it says that even a saintly person, wherever he goes, he can purify that place as well. The saintly person can purify even a holy place. And we find in the, the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, we find that Mother Ganga is questioning Lord Krishna that now you are going away, you're going to be leaving. How will I become purified when sinful people come and take their bath in my waters like this? And Krishna said that when the saintly persons, they come and take a bath in your water, automatically you become purified. So just like that, Srila Prabhupada has created new Vrindavan. He's created new Navadvip, new Dwarka. So all these holy places, he's replicated. He has the power to be able to take the spiritual world from Vrindavan like that and transfer Vrindavan all over the world. Our Radhanath temple, I was speaking to His Grace Swarup Damodar Prabhu, and he said, we have another Vrindavan, Durban. He was speaking like that, Durban. But this is how he was saying. It's a matter of understanding, a matter of consciousness, that Vrindavan is wherever Krishna is. Wherever Krishna is, that is Vrindavan. So definitely no, the material world is different, but Srila Prabhupada, he took Vrindavan from America, from India, and he took Vrindavan all over the world. And this is his power. And every temple of ISKCON is a holy place, is Vrindavan, is a saintly place. Mayapur Vrindavan, like that, Jagannath Puri, like this, wherever the Lord resides. As soon as you enter into that, it's not the material world anymore. It's the spiritual world because Krishna is there. And besides, there isn't anything material. Everything is spiritual. It's all a transformation of Krishna's energy into material. That's actually everything is spiritual because Krishna is all spirit. But he somehow or the other transforms his energy into material matter so that we can be facilitated to enjoy in the material world. But actually everything is spiritual because it comes from the all supreme spirit, Krishna. But no, the temples are definitely not material. They are all spiritual. That's definite.
Thank you,
Yes.
Prabhu. We have another question from Colleen Mataji.
Okay.
Mataji, please unmute.
Power, 20%. It's okay.
Kali Mataji, please unmute yourself. I see your hand is up. Okay, Prabhu, there's no comment from the Mataji, so I'm not sure. Maybe she's trying to unmute. I'm not sure. Okay.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, so Prabhu, is there any other comments or realizations from anybody? Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. We really appreciate your
pleasure.
time and your dedication.
Thank you for the privilege and honor. I'm very grateful. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindhubhayavacham patitanam pavanabhayo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much. Thank
you,
all
Prabhu.
of you. I'm very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Yes. Just a few minutes, Kirtan, Prabhu, we really appreciate it. Just a little bit
sure.
just to end off. And Prabhu, you with your wife and your children as well. Thank you. Thank them for
We don't
joining
have
us.
any. We don't have.
Your wife, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank your wife for joining. I heard her singing before. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She's yeah. You want to sing? Would you want to chant, Prabhu, or you want me to chant?
Yourself, Prabhu, you like how you did in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Let me say Shri Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Shri Krishna Jai Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendam Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendra Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendra Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendra Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Karmatavendra Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Nata Radha Radha Nata Radha Radha Nata Radha Jaya Gauran Nitai Gauran Nitai Gauran Nitai Jaya Gauran Nitai Jaya Gauran Nitai Gauran Nitai Gauran Nitai Jaya Gauran Nitai Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. All girls shall lotus feet, all girls shall Prabhupada. Panchakalpa Tirubhascha, Kripa Sundar Bevacha, Patidanam Pavinabhyo, Vaishnavabhyo, Namo Namaha. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Hari
really
Bol.
appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay. Hari Bol.